Hello and welcome back to this edition of Daily Actives brought to you by Bootleg Macro. I am Dustin. This is the show where we look at we look at many of the most active stocks in Yahoo Finance every single day. We're going to be looking at NVIDIA first. This is an interesting one because NVIDIA has continued to be what I've considered to be essentially a king returning from war. Over the summertime, this was very, very bullish. You can see the green bars here mean that it was bullish, with the red bars underneath the price there. The black line is priced underneath that. That means it was bearish. We are starting to see what looks like a fake out. I'm not necessarily sure exactly what's going to happen. Obviously, you can essentially pay attention to Twitter or Truth Social in the United States to pay attention to if there's going to be any new announcements which may be affecting a company. They obviously had their announcement where they invested, I believe, with OpenAI, or OpenAI invested with them. But when we look at what we're seeing here, the concerning thing I'd say is that I'm starting to see the top of the range come down. I generally think that the top of the range and the bottom of the range are the most important parts. If we're looking at the price is important as well. But what I really want to see is a higher high in the top of the range, as well as a higher low in the bottom of the range. Right now, it looks like the range started to go up and it's starting to come down a little bit. The top of the range, it looks like, is 195, and the bottom of the range is 171. Now, if we go ahead and look at the actual chart here, the concerning thing I'd say is that we started to see essentially a breakout after we saw this basing move. We started to see a little bit of a breakout, looks like on the 9th. We've had essentially two back-to-back red candles over the past 2 days, as well as one very big red candle on Friday. I know this is all catalyst driven based off of what's coming out of the administration, but it doesn't mean that you don't want to see something fight through a bull trend. There's other stocks on here today that were up 15%, 20%. Some of them that I made fun of yesterday. Now, if we're looking at the volume, the concerning thing I'd say most likely is that we're seeing high volume on these moves down. I'm assuming we're going to see a trend break here. Right now, it does have a sentiment of bullish. It's at 49.2% on the daily. Yesterday it was at 49.3. 3 days ago, it looks like it was at 51.4. Not the right direction we want to see it go in. Over the 15 days, it looks like we're at 54.7 in terms of the bullish sentiment for NVIDIA. The volatility is starting to peak. Hopefully, it's starting to roll over. I do believe that falling volatility is generally when you see a price continue to trend. If we start to look at the actual data table here, the most concerning thing is that the price is now below the trade level. The fact that the price is now below the trade level is probably the most concerning thing that I see. I do like the fact that if you look, it has a green background with black lettering, similar to what we see here in the normal. I like that look because what that means is we're in the middle of the range. We still have a higher low. We do no longer have a higher high. That's a concern to me. Obviously, we're only down on the 1 day and the 5 day. The 15 day is only 1.62%, which means that if we have a down day tomorrow, this thing's probably going to be down over the past 3 weeks. And I don't know if you're really going to fight for it being higher over the past 1 month. The only positive thing when it comes to the rolling return for the past 1 month is that for this previous period in September and August, we essentially were kind of going downwards already. So my concern would be if this bullishness breaks down, the bearishness returns and the price goes really on a bearish trend. Let's go ahead and look at what we have next. Plug is a very interesting stock because if you're watching my previous videos, this thing essentially is running because the entire market is running. When we're looking at the actual trade level here, though, the thing that I love is that we had essentially really low volatility, really tight ranges. We started to see a breakout. The price is breaking up above the top of the range, consolidating, breaking up to essentially the top of the range, consolidating, continuing on. And then we saw a trend break essentially there, and we went a little bit of bearish here in the beginning of September. Now, what we've seen essentially since the very beginning of September or the middle of September is the price is breaking up above the top of the range, an expansion in volatility, price breaking up above the top of the range, consolidating. Again, price breaking up above the top of the range. I'm assuming it's just going to consolidate here. I like how the top of the range continues to go higher. When we're looking at the candles, things look nice. I'd say you're essentially seeing it like, again, rise and then pull back, rise and then pull back. It's really nice to see, especially considering that the advancements that we're seeing are on higher volume. I don't really like that this October 2nd was a perfect day for volume. They're just not lined up perfectly because that one's not as long. The October 2nd volume, when you're seeing this massive candle here, that's a really positive sign. We're looking at the sentiment. This thing is starting to roll over a little bit. It hit a high of 63.1 right back in October, the very beginning. Now we're at 57.1. If I'm going to say anything that's going to be concerning about pull or plug at the moment is going to be that it is now below the 50% line on the 15 day. But again, you're expecting this in what would be a pullback here in plug. The volatility, ridiculously high, continues to break out. Most likely it is going to continue to, or is going to start to roll over. Again, I believe when you're getting falling volatility, that's when trend reveals itself. It isn't necessarily going to be a bullish trend, it's just trend in general. So like this period here was the end of the trend. So if we look, we have like April into the beginning of June. This is going to be April into like the beginning of June. And then what you see is we have a complete resetting of volatility where essentially we're having a trend change. And you can see this even in the sentiment here. We get a trend change. Right now, I would like to see the rollover of volatility, right? Then I'd like to see it essentially just be sideways to up. We're looking at what we're seeing in the price. It's kind of remarkable because the trade level's at 307, the close is at 385. We're moderately high is the way that I look at it. We've got a bullish sentiment. That's very good. We do have a higher low in the range. We got a higher high. If we start to look at what's actually happening in the rolling returns, we're at 92% over the past month. That's probably going to come down. Obviously, it was up at 180%. It looks like just like a few weeks ago. Usually you'll start to see things come down. But if we get closer to like 30, 25, 15% on the 1 month, I would start to expect that there's going to be an opportunity and plug going forward. Let's go ahead and look at RX. What is this? RXRX. This is going to be a very interesting one. Pharmaceutical stock looks like there's up 15.2% today. Absolutely monster. What I love, ooh, I like this. I might buy this. The reason I say it so quickly is because you have a very tight range currently. So you can see that we've seen expanded ranges back here when we got that little bit of breakout. And then the range got really tight, trend changed. We got a very tight range, saw breakout, saw continued bullishness here. These aren't big 2 to 6. I mean, that's a decent move. You know what I mean? Like you're going to make really good money in that move if you can hold to the volatility. But with the move that we're seeing here is I'm seeing a complete trend change. We saw a very tight range, and now it looks like we're starting to see the price that's continuing to break out. The nice thing about what I'm seeing is that we've seen essentially a complete like character change in the candles. You can see that we had essentially back here in February, we saw very expansive candles. We saw some gap ups and we saw some very big moves down. We've essentially seen the volatility come out of this over the past summer. Like in June, there's not much volatility, not much through July, not much through August. What we're starting to see in October is larger candles again, a confirmed trend up, and massive volume. Like if you look back here, yes, the volume was good. You were seeing like 16, 20, 25 million, 40, 50 million. We saw 175 million shares traded today. That's huge. What I like as well is that even during this transition from summer to now, we saw this essentially stay above the 50% line when it comes to bullishness on the day on the like full month look back essentially for the day here. It did break down a little bit in August. Nothing to be concerned about, especially when we're looking at the 15-day. It's starting to come down a little bit. We're at 59.3, which is, I mean, it's high, but it's not the most extreme that I've seen. We start to look at the volatility starting to break out, correlations going with it, which means we would expect some gap ups. Real volatility starting to break out. That correlation is also positive. The move that we saw today, I'm assuming it had to be a gap up. I mean, what I love by this thing is that just 2 days ago, we were in the normal range. We were in the very middle of the range, which was perfect. Great opportunity to buy. Even then, you were seeing it at 1 month positive. It was still negative on the 3 month, 6 month, and 1 year. But now we're positive on the 1 year as well, which is huge. Because the reason why the 1 year is big is because when you look at most data, you're probably not going to find like when it stays 1 year negative, that's like for a long period of time. Like this is still negative from just today. So the last time that this thing was positive in the 1 year was back in December of 2024. So we're talking like 12 months ago, nearly 11 months ago, 10 months ago. So it's one of those things that you just want to be conscious of that we've seen a actual character transition. We've seen it go to a 1 year rolling return positive. The price was in the significantly higher zone. The volume was extremely high. I'm not concerned about that right now. I would actually buy this very much exactly how I was excited when I first looked at it. I would buy this. The reason why is because these are the type of moves that this can easily go to like 10 bucks, 15 bucks without you even thinking about it, with no pullbacks whatsoever, and then it'll settle around like 12. That's probably still 100% from here. So I'm very, very bullish on what I'm seeing right now in RXRX. I don't even know what it is. I don't read the news or anything like that. Pharmaceutical company, maybe it had like an actual trial or something, but I like it. Go ahead and look at Bitfarm. I'm interested in what we got in Bitfarm today. Bitfarms, I think it's Bitfarms. What I'm interested in is because this thing continues to just be a rocket ship. I mean, when we look at it on the up close, yeah, it's been breaking out here. The top of the range has been rising. The price has been hitting it and then consolidating and now continuing to follow it. What I like too is that this breakout has essentially been a low volatility breakout. Like these candles are not massive. Yeah, you're up 16%, whatever. These candles are not like ridiculous. I mean, obviously the volume is very, very high. The price is really low, but you're seeing it continue to move. And this is no different than what I think I saw in RXRX. This could easily go to like 12, 15 bucks. Not saying that there's an evaluation reason for that. I don't pay attention to fundamentals. I don't read the news. I don't pay attention to any catalyst. I'm just looking at purely the data. The volume is supporting it. We are looking at this and we can see that we can see that we have already got essentially so the volume is supporting it, and then we look at the sentiment. What we can see is that we've been very well above the 50% line. It looks like since the 5th of September. We were starting to roll over a little bit. We're at 65%, nothing to be concerned about. On the 15-day, which is it's a much faster indicator. We've broken out essentially on the 9th of September. We continue to ride. We're at 70.5. That would be the only concern that I'd see right now, is that it's just a little too bullish. I mean, I do suspect that this is going to continue to run as well, but it just might be a little too bullish, especially because the volume or the volatility, excuse me, is breaking out and rising even from a high level. I don't really like that. You get massive moves though. You get gap ups. You get these moves that are just like, again, this is something that would be astonishing. I mean, it's up 61% in 5 days. It's up 133% in 15 days. If you're watching this video and you've been able to hang on, congratulations. Because this thing is significantly high at $6.47. It's very, very bullish. The volume is supporting it, as we already pointed out. The sentiment is clearly just going to be bullish and has been bullish. The only time that she got even a little dip was back here in August, but there's essentially since then, middle of July was the last time that she thought that there might be something bearish happening in this. We see that we are from the 1 day to the 1 year bullish off the charts. I want to go ahead and look at NVTS. I looked at this yesterday. NVTS, I looked at this yesterday, and I'm very curious about what this is going to look like today because that was breaking out, and that was a massive move, and it continues to be a massive move. I mean, yeah, it gapped up today. It was up 20.6%. This is insane. I mean, and just to call out the difference here, the reason why my candlestick here says 15.5 and Yahoo Finance says 20.6 in terms of the percentage change for today, I'm measuring the open of today versus the close of today because I want to see if like it gapped open and then closed red. What Yahoo is to today's close. I don't think that that's fair because I want to see what the gap did. And I do think, and you'll see this on a lot of gap ups that like failed during the day, like this move here yesterday, it was really only up 96 basis points, but yesterday it was up big too. That's why I covered it, but it wasn't really like, yes, it gapped up, but a lot of people got out, which is why you didn't see a huge bullish candle. Today, we are seeing a big bullish candle. We saw this essentially with the wicks too. It came down to the bottom, fought back up at the top, then came down a little. I like where it closed, especially considering that it opened there. So if we see this, the top of the range is well below the price right now. That's not concerning, only because the move that we're seeing is so explosive and it's supported essentially by volume here. 157, 147 million shares, not 150 million shares traded. If we look at the sentiment, this thing essentially is at 58.3, so it's well above the 50% line. It has been since the 19th of September. On the 15-day, we're just bouncing off that line for the 50% line. I really like that. The volatility is starting to break out. The correlation is starting to stay very positive. When you have two positives, when you have high volatility and high price correlation, generally that means you're going to get gaps, which I don't mind. I think that's very positive for a stock like this. We can see that yesterday, obviously, we were at 1257, and today we're at 1516. I mean, it's up 20% today. It was up 26% yesterday. It was up 20% the day before. These kinds of moves can run. You just want to be, you have to be early. Like, you truly have to be early. You got to be around that $8 like mark. It would be so hard to not sell, especially if you're in like options or something on this. I don't own any position, but it's got to be incredibly difficult to like figure out when should I sell, when should I hold, should I add more? I don't know. I mean, today or over the past 5 days, it's up 95%. Past 15 days, it's up 120%. It's crazy to me because over 3 months it's only up 75%. So you can tell that like there's been some dips. Like this was a dip back here in September. Let's go ahead and look at what we see in Rigetti Computing. I think I cover Rigetti every single day now. I mean, the AI move is just insane. And this thing had a very nice day. This is the type of day that I actually would like to see in Rigetti. The reason why is because what we've seen is essentially a very tight range. The breakout off of higher volatility with the price hitting the top of the range, consolidating, hitting the top of the range, consolidating, hitting the top of the range. Most likely to consolidate here, which is actually what you want to see, right? You've got a few red candles in this March higher. It looks like today is just another one in that chain. Obviously, yes, from yesterday's close to today's close, it actually did. It was up, but the way that I see it, this thing opened at 57.88 and it closed at 56.34. I consider that to be a down day. Even though it gapped open and it ended up closing higher, that doesn't matter to me. I think that this is a down day, and I think that's something to be paid attention to, especially as we start to look like the volume was good because the volume was lower on the down day. Even though, yes, it was a gap, you can dice this data however you want. We look at the sentiment. What's interesting is that the sentiment's starting to come down. We're at 65%. If you watched the earlier part of this video in terms of maybe Plug or one of the other ones, maybe RXRX, I think I was pointing something out at 70%. This was at 70% and is now down at 65% on a rolling bullish sentiment. On the 15-day, we peaked. We peaked on the 24th and we've been coming down. It looks like on the 15th is when we really, or today is the day that we are starting to really see that rollover. We're going to break 60 pretty quick here. The volatility, it looks like it's starting to slow. It's still rising, but it's not rising as quickly, right? Like when it resets, it rises really quickly. It's incredibly high. So I'd like to see this roll over and then the correlation stay negative like this. The price will probably go sideways to up. Let's go ahead and look at what we have here. But the big problem for Rigetti Computing, this is, and I can look at the data. Yes, it's moderately high. The volume is not super high. It's bullish. The trade rate, the trade level being at 34 or $38 is a problem when it's at 56. You have a higher low, you have a higher high. Those are all really good. Yes, $62 is in play. But the problem is that over the past 1 month, you're still up 156%. I mean, and that has to come down. It doesn't have to come down, but look, you're up 180 yesterday, you're up 175 a couple of weeks ago. Like you're going to need to get back down to at least up 45, most likely probably into the 20s, which means we're just going to sit here for a while, most likely, which I'd like to see, or slowly grind higher. I mean, it's tough when you're up 256% in 3 months. No matter what you think, no matter what you say, these types of moves, they need some sort like people have to get trapped. Like this has to be for this to move any higher, it's got to be like a short squeeze. Let's go ahead and look at BBI. What is this? Big Bear? It's got to be AI. I don't know what it is, but it's got to be AI. Big Bear. So if we're looking at Big Bear, this is an interesting one because this has bounced off the top of the range. The top of the range isn't really that high. That's the only concerning thing that I can see initially. We had tight volatility. We started to see a breakout that was really good, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Like this isn't really a trend. I don't really like how this doesn't trend. You got the same thing back here at the beginning of the year, breakout, consolidate. And it consolidated lower, which is like not great. Like we haven't come down here to like $3 or 350 or even $4 yet. I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon, but it's going to happen eventually. I mean, the cycle will end. If we look though, what we can see is we've essentially hit the top of the range was at 904. We've come down. We're probably going to consolidate a little bit more. I like that the top of the range is rising. Like the angle of the line is really good. I want to see the bottom of the range continue to get tighter as well. This just isn't an interesting trend to me, the way that Big Bear is trading, because these breakouts continue to be fake outs. We've seen now what looks like a high at 939. We did not hit that today, even for the high. We closed down today 6.48%. And again, see, this is why I like the way that I computed on the candlestick. These guys are going to say you're up 34 basis points. No. From the open to the close day, you're down 6.48%. Yes, you're higher than yesterday, but not by much. Like that's so easy for someone to like deal with. And you can tell too that it's not supported in terms of the way that the price moved, even though it was up in the volume. You only had 129 million shares traded today. The average, well, yes, it's 95 million. When you're seeing these big moves, you're seeing 200 plus million shares traded. What we're seeing is essentially the bottom of the sentiment here on 9/9 has peaked. It peaked on 10/13 at what 63.5%, and now it's coming down. We're under 60% now. On the 15-day, similar case. We were at the very bottom on 9/8. We peaked on 210, and now we are down at 54%. The volatility is slowing down, probably going to start to fade, just as the rest of them always do. There's always a fade. There's interesting patterns that you get to see, like, are you high first and then you get really low? Are you low first and you get high in the back end? Who knows? So we can't forecast exactly what we're going to see in terms of the market volatility here, but we can definitely say what we're seeing, at least over the next few days. Volatility looks like it's going sideways to potentially down. I'd like to see the volatility correlation go down. That'd be really positive. If we start to look at what we're seeing in the data table, this thing is moderately high. It's been significantly high, but the volume is not really supporting it, which is good. That's really positive to me, especially because even though it's moderately high and we were down 4.38% today, that's crazy. That's crazy that this thing was down nearly 5% just because it could have just done nothing. I mean, to be fair, this essentially did do nothing for the day. Like, yes, some people may look at this and say, like, well, it's still up 16% for the day, or 16% for the week, and 12.5% for 15 days. This thing did essentially nothing, and it shouldn't. I would like this to come back to the middle of the range. I want to see the trade level get much closer, which today we saw some good movement there. We do see the top of the range continuing to break out. We see the bottom of the range continuing to come up. Those are all positive signs. And it is really positive in a bullish sense when you're down 4.38% and you have down volume. Like this, 129 million shares is not a little amount of shares, but it's the fewest amount of shares that they've had since the 9th of October, right? So that's what I want to see. Those are the type of moves that I'd like to see because that's what I want to buy into. I want to buy into the pullback. I don't want to buy in the breakout. The breakout's already happened to me, and I don't need to prove to myself that there's a breakout. I need to prove that there's a trend. Let's go ahead and look. I'm not going to look at, no, let's go ahead. Ooh, I want to look at AMD. I'm really curious about what's been going on in AMD because this is definitely something I should buy. The reason why I should buy this is because AMD's entire market profile has transitioned. It was a very low volatility back here where you see the ranges are very tight. You see a little bit of bullishness. Then you see some very tight ranges, some bearishness, and then you start to see it break out again. This breakout, and we can look at it when we're on the chart here, this is a completely different kind of market structure than any of this because this is low volatility bull market, which I love. You can make a ton of money in a low volatility bull market. You can make a ton of money on a low volatility bear market. But where you can make a shit ton of money is in a high volatility, high like expansion of volatility, right? Because this is low volatility to high volatility. You want to see you want to see a massive expansion of volatility. Even when we look at it on the traditional, you want to see a massive expansion of volatility. Because if you can catch the trend in the way that I'm paying attention to it in terms of a bullish move, these can be these can I mean, right now, if we're just looking, I don't look fundamentally. AMD is not even worth $400 billion. This could easily be a $1 trillion company because NVIDIA is worth 4.3 trillion. So what they're doing clearly has changed their actual fundamentals because the market is reacting to them differently. So I like what I see here. I definitely should buy some calls on AMD. I like the fact that when we've had the big days, we've had high volume. When we've had low days, we've had low volume. Today was a moderate day, and we had 106 million shares traded. What I also love is that this thing is essentially coming from bearish sentiment to bullish sentiment. We are still only at 56.2% on the 1 month or on the 1 day, as well as on the 15 day. We're only at 57.9. Volatility continues to break out. The correlation, while it's negative, is starting to come positive with it, which is huge. If we look at what we're seeing, the interesting thing is that again, today was a really nice day. I should have bought yesterday. This is a really nice day because we're moderately high, but the top of the range is breaking out and continues to climb, right? It was 252 yesterday, 247 a couple days ago, 241. 235, 221. We're up at 261. I love that. And I love when the bottom of the range is starting to break down because the volatility is screaming so much compared to the most recent volatility. When you're seeing the rate of the jaws essentially open like this, and then you see the price respect the top of the range and then consolidate and then continue to follow it. Ooh, that is when you can get something special, especially when it has all of the key factors. Like, I don't even know. I'm thinking if I made up something called like a star five or something, but like the company needs to be well known. It needs to be some sort of brand name. It needs to have a charismatic CEO, or at least somebody who people can be like, that's the person who's in charge of that company. Somebody you can put on top of like a magazine. And again, I don't think this is super important, but the more charismatic, the better. You need to have something that's tied to a larger trend, which has nothing to do with their company, but they are central to it, and they are capturing the growth of that other trend. AI is a great example. And then I think one of the things that they don't have is, I'd love if they did a stock split. If they did a 10 for 1 and this thing was $23, that would be, ooh, chef's kiss. Because I do think that there's something about the price of the stock, because people love to see something go to 100. When it's already over 200, now we got to hit like 500 or 1,000 for it to be like an interesting round number for people. But if this thing was at 23.86 as opposed to $238, this would be an opportunity specifically for this thing to run to 20 to 25 to 30 to 50 to 100, and people would love it. They'd be all over message boards for it. So we're looking at AMD. I'm very bullish on what I'm seeing here. Today is a great signal of what's to come. Again, I don't look at fundamentals, but the market cap is really low relative to what people consider to be one of its contemporaries. The trade level continues to run higher. We are up 48% in 15 days, 49% in 1 month. These are crazy moves when you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. Because this thing, if what we're telling me is that this thing has gained 50% in the past 3 weeks in terms of it, yeah, telling me that this thing has gained what, like $150 billion in market cap. That's the only way that the numbers work, unless my numbers are completely wrong. But you can tell me in the comments below. AMD is something I want to be paying attention to, and something that is definitely going to be on my radar. I don't think there's anything else that I really care about at the moment that's on here. If there's other tickers that you wish that I would have covered, let me know. I try to just do whatever I think are the most interesting and the most actives. If you're interested in finding out any more about what I do, you can always follow me on YouTube. Go ahead, subscribe, do the subscribe. You can always follow me on Twitter as well. I've got 178 subscribers. I've done 328 videos. I think it's pretty good value. I think the type of analysis that I do may not be your cup of tea, but if it is your cup of tea and you've made it this far, bravo to you. You are thinking about doing things the right way, in my opinion. But either way, I'll talk to you soon.